So, Cheryl Miller is one of the greatest players of all time. Obviously, Reggie Miller's sister, who is one of the top 100 NBA players of all time, and Cheryl Miller was the better basketball player. But in this video, we are going to be going over all the things that Cheryl Miller said in a very recent interview. So she was on the All the Smoke podcast, and we're going to be talking about the very specific things that she said about Caitlin Clark. Obviously, it is from the All the Smoke podcast, these clips, and we're going to be reacting to these things in general. But for a bit of backstory, like, Cheryl Miller was probably really the first person in WNBA to embrace Caitlin Clark. Like, she went out of her way. She was there for Caitlin Clark's first win, and she's gone out of her way multiple times to praise Caitlin. Like, Cheryl Miller was almost like Caitlin before Caitlin to an extent. Like, she was the most hyped female player of all time when she played in college, and kind of there was similar pressure with how good she was faced to what was faced by Caitlin Clark. I'm not going to say the same pressure, but I think you can maybe make the argument that there was similar pressure. But anyway, now let's take a listen to these podcast clips. So, first one, very easy one. This is what she said about coaching.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job
Best
ever.
coaching job ever.
I mean, we all remember that clip where she's just there at a timeout. This is like the third quarter. It's like a tie game as Team USA. She just goes, I'm having fun. Don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun. Like, we all remember that clip. Then she's on with Caitlin. Here, let's take a listen.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to be hated. Mm. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
That is I'm not gonna, again, I've always been one where it's like, I'm not gonna go as far as to say people hate Caitlin, because there's a whole bunch of different reasons. I'm not gonna go as far as to say there obviously are people, but I would never accuse an individual of hating someone because of the color of their skin, because I know it's one of the worst things you can call someone, you can accuse someone of doing. So I'd never go that far. But I mean, Cheryl Miller just said it. Just said that's what happened.
I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. Mm-hmm. And people just having,
despise is more extreme than hate.
She brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. Mm-hmm. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Angel and her got along so well, and watching them practice. And yeah, just get it. And Caitlin's like, just fly. And watching her pass. And
let's take a listen. Cheryl Miller on coaching Caitlin during the All-Star game.
I didn't know how talented she was and how well she sees the game in a 3D version, thinker. Mm-hmm. Defensively, a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for. I didn't know.
That's a scary thing when you've got like an actual person who's as great of a basketball mind as Cheryl Miller, say she's way better in defensively than she thought. So it does kind of give a bit of credit to the argument that I've made that Caitlin Clark is an intelligent defender, but she's not, obviously she's not the greatest individual defender, not the greatest one-on-one, and terrible navigating screens. But clearly she's able to understand systems, understand certain things, understand matchups, and it might have been a Christy Sides issue of just not having a game plan. Because to be fair, Christy Sides' defensive game plan was basically her game plan was score more points than the other team. I don't think it was much more in-depth than that when it came to Christy Sides. Okay, let's see what else she said here.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting up there knocking on anybody's door, offering my advice, because I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be social media, Instagram, this. I don't know what it's like to be bombarded and have to be the breadwinner in the family and be a brand and be worried about what I do or say and everything else, or 24/7 being pulled in so many different directions and not knowing. I mean, throw in the fact that if I'm insecure, if I've got my own mental issues going on, who do I talk to? I don't regret being born when I was.
Right.
I'm in the right place at the right time. It's just been fascinating to watch these young ladies come up and now take the baton and take it to a different level.
And it is funny when you're looking at a lot of it's I'll always say it is the likes of like a Cynthia Cooper, a Cheryl Miller were all as good as your Cheryl Swoops, but Cheryl Swoops gone full on in the Caitlyn hating. And by the way, Cheryl Swoops, other than when it was to knock Caitlyn, Cheryl Swoops has not been that like she's not been that positive of like an Angel Reese. But she'll only hype Angel when she's getting called out for being anti-Caitlyn. She'll then show up at an Angel Reese game. Like that's the thing is like, again, I feel bad in a way. I've always said this for Angel Reese. The amount of people that have latched onto her, not because they like her, because you better believe they'll turn on her soon as well, just because she was seen as the anti-Clark. Okay, so one more clip. There's more clips.
She handled it in a graceful way as well. Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Or if you're Cheryl Swoops, you'll do neither.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of
You
hard,
know
right?
what? And I used and Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies. Is she getting hyped? Yes. But she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I can't fault her for what she was given. But look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
Come on, folks are still waiting for her to fall.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Like she was literally averaging like 17, 6, and 6. No one had ever averaged 15, 5, and 5 and not made an all WNBA team before. And she was averaging 17, 6, and 6 and people were calling her a draft bust. She was averaging 17, 6, and 6 because the worst team in the WNBA was the worst team in the WNBA, or the second worst team, whatever. And the second worst team from the year before. And you can't even say, like, oh, well, they were the third worst team the year before, but, like, I mean, the Storm, they made this improvement, so these other players are better. Yeah, well, the Storm literally got Neka and Skylar Diggins, and the Phoenix Mercury got Kalia Copper, and Beck Allen came in, so, like, they got more, and they didn't have the learning curve, and by the end of things, they were better than the Storm by the end of the season. Obviously not record-wise, and they obviously finished ahead of the Mercury.
With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing. And thank God I don't listen to, I don't follow social media, and I could really care less because I've been delivered from being a people pleaser and what you think about me.
Right. Me too.
But I will tell you one thing.
Welcome.
I'm just glad that these young ladies who are at the upper tier players, I hope and pray that they have a solid foundation. Mm-hmm. And they know, guys, who they are.
And I think, in fairness to Cheryl Miller, I think that the young players, as in your Caitlyns, your Angels, your Cam Brinks, your Pages coming through, your Jujus, these people have gotten the hype from a very young age. And when you get the hype from a young age, it can go two ways. Like, you can go down the Julian Newman route where it can just go to absolute shit very quickly. But you can see the ones that have had the hype from high school and they're still that level player. They're still elite and they're able to deal with it. So when that ends up happening for those type of players, I think they have the foundations. I think the problem are, like, no offense to them, but like it's the likes of, I think Age has gotten the hype, Sabrina's gotten the hype. It might be the likes of Age, but it's the likes of, say, a Diamond Shields, who isn't used to any social media backlash at all, and then she goes and fouls Caitlin Clark flagrantly. She goes and fouls Caitlin Clark, hits her with 3 hard fouls in 30 seconds, and suddenly social media, when they don't know how to deal with that, or when, for certain players not knowing how to deal with social media. And it's funny because even these players being like celebrities in their own country, like a Julie Vanloo, who she got Caitlin Clark to push her, and she got into it with Caitlin Clark, and obviously it was our social media, but Julie Vanloo can deal with that, and like, you never know how someone's going to be able to deal with that. She's obviously better at dealing with that. But a lot of these WNBA players are not used to the attention, whether that be positive or negative. And it can be, if you're not used to negative attention, it can be hard to deal with it. And that's one of the things, in fairness to Bree Turner, #1 Twitter fingers in the WNBA, she has just turned off replies. That's the best thing she could do. Just don't search your name and turn off replies. And instead of hitting for you, hit following on Twitter. It's the best thing you can do. So let's take a listen here. Anything else? Says she wants to be an NBA consultant and do this. Or WNBA consultant.
That's you and your feelings. Get over it. Be quiet.
Some real shit.
I'm going to pray about you. That's you and your feelings.
Jesus. But yeah, that's pretty much it, lads. That's pretty much it. Like, I genuinely think that, like, Cheryl Miller is one of the players. Like, it's always funny when it's like, whether it be Cheryl Miller, whether it be Cynthia Cooper, I think Candace Parker has not been too bad. I love Candace Parker on Inside the NBA because she's the only person that will call out the Inside the NBA crew for just talking nonsense. And you can see, like, the people that are Chinea Nwumike. And the thing about Chinea Nwumike, people are like, oh, she was talking about the Olympics. Like, the Olympic take has aged badly. It wasn't smart take at the time, and it's aged even worse. But it's like, making bad takes is fine with a lot of these people. And I think with a lot of the media, when it comes to, like, say, Chinea, or when it comes to, like, a Candace Parker, because they've been working on NBA media, they've made a lot of bad takes, and they've been called out for it, and they're used to the backlash that comes with bad takes, and then the next time someone else makes a bad take, they stop caring about you. Whereas a lot of WNBA media that have been solely in the WNBA, nobody's cared. So you make a bad take, nobody cares. Like, the person who was complaining about, you know, the WNBA, the old media not getting their, like, new media getting pushed instead of old media. And it's like, we all have the same 24 hours. We all have the same access to the internet. We all have the same access to media. It's just, obviously, whoever
What have you
made the
given me
choice,
3 more weeks?
Jesus Christ. Sorry, I just keep clicking the wrong thing. Whoever made the choice did what they did. And, like, I just saw this video, ironically, just on my YouTube home feed, and this sums it up. You have got a person on YouTube, Andrew Fenichel, reacting to my worst NBA takes, where it's like, you're allowed to make bad takes, and it's funny, and it's like the people that, and even with Cheryl Miller with all the stuff and everything in the media, she came out, she was like, I was so glad that everything was wrong. So clearly, obviously, she obviously was meeting with Caitlin Clark and not even knowing what to expect, and then was surprised that all the narrative was wrong. So yeah, it's great to see the likes of Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper, a lot of the players in the league kind of embracing Caitlin, because when it's all said and done, when it'll be the players that are kind of embracing the new players. It'll be Caitlin, whether it be Juju, whether it be Paige, and are not doing it from the perspective of we are only embracing X player because we want to diminish the greatness of Caitlin. And then as soon as that player we're praising ends up being really good, and they're getting hyped, like if Paige goes and averages 15, 5, and 5 in the WNBA, and suddenly it's like, oh, could Paige are Paige and Caitlin the two best guys in the W? And just like, obviously, the same people that were giving Sabrina abuse were now using Sabrina to put down Caitlin Clark. And Cheryl Miller wasn't that. And hasn't been that, and it is great to see. But anyway, I'll see you guys.